I don't remember inviting you. Ah, she must be talking about her bragging party today, showing off her fancy high-rise apartment to everyone. Well, I don't remember being invited either, and I certainly had no desire to go. But she continued to confront me. Did you come for a tour or something? You, who can only afford such cheap and unimpressive clothes for your own daughter? She smirked, looking down on me. Hearing this, I decided to fight back. Is there a reason I shouldn't be here? Yes, this is no place for someone as poor as you. With one sentence, I stopped Jasmine in her tracks. As my words sunk in, her face turned ashen, then quickly flushed with anger. She couldn't believe what I had said and called me a lying bastard, which was rather amusing. My name is Ellen, and I'm a homemaker. I did want to work, but at my husband's request, I decided to focus on our home. But every day is filled with joy as I work hard for my family. My loving husband, our dear daughter, and I lead a life full of love and dedication. This story took place a few years after my daughter was born. She had grown up, and it was time for her to attend preschool. Among several options, my husband and I chose the preschool where we believed our daughter could grow freely. At first, she was a little nervous, but she soon made many friends and enjoyed her days at preschool. I also made new friends, other moms, thanks to our children's friendships. But not all of these connections were pleasant. While most of them were kind, there were a few who always tried to one-up everyone else. The leader of this pack was Jasmine. According to other parents, Jasmine was a homemaker too, but her husband worked at a famous company. She seemed to brag a lot about being the wife of an employee at such a notable firm. Her stories were always about luxurious hotels, trips abroad, or buying designer items. Just recently, I had to listen to her boast about her lunch at a renowned chef's restaurant. While Jasmine seemed to have a few friends among the moms, I didn't want much to do with her. But it seems like we can't always choose who we encounter. On holiday, I took my daughter to the park and unexpectedly ran into Jasmine. "Oh, hello there," she approached me. Jasmine was dressed in an elegant, tight dress with delicate, strappy mules. Everything about her screamed expensive. It was all so outstandingly flashy and beautiful. Not exactly the outfit one would expect for a park outing with a child. "Hello," I managed to respond, doing my best to hide my discomfort. She then erased her expression and stared at me. I was puzzled, wondering if I'd done something wrong. But then I realized her gaze was focused on my daughter standing next to me. Upon seeing my daughter, Jasmine chuckled in a derisive manner, looking at me with a smirk, and then she turns to me with the smirk. "Hey, where do you buy your daughter's clothes?" I wonder why she's asking. Her next line answers my question quickly. "Those clothes look quite cheap. Don't you feel bad for your daughter?" Indeed, my daughter was wearing a simple t-shirt and skinny jeans that you could find anywhere. But it's not ragged, and I never really paid it any mind, so I just chuckled and let it slide. It seems like any response I give would just invite a counter-argument, so saying anything now would only lead to a headache. Better to avoid unnecessary confrontation. Seeing my forced smile, Jasmine apparently assumed she'd hit a nerve. With a triumphant look, she said, "If you can't afford anything better, let me know. I can give you some of my kids' old clothes. They're second-hand, though. If you want, I can even give you some of my clothes." I had no particular desire to accept her offer, so I responded vaguely with, "Sure, I'll keep that in mind if I ever need to." By this time, our kids were engrossed in different play equipment, so I was eager to end the conversation. "My daughter seems to want to play somewhere else, so I have to go," I told her. "Well, if you ever need help with clothes, don't hesitate to tell me." She waved flamboyantly, and we parted ways. Seeing my daughter's cheerful smile ahead of me, my irritation subsided. One day I heard Jasmine was inviting some close mom friends over to a party at her house. Apparently, she'd bought a newly built high-rise apartment with her husband's money. She probably planned to show off the apartment during her home party. I was not invited. But I had no interest in a party thrown by Jasmine, and figured it would just be an opportunity for her to boast, so I didn't care. Rumor has it that there was a dress code for the dinner party. Apparently, the guests were instructed to wear ostentatious, brightly colored, and beautiful dresses, which aren't usually required at a casual home party. I also heard that moms from relatively affluent families were invited. Sure enough, looking at the guest list, there were moms with husbands working at global companies or whose families owned large pieces of land. The dress code was probably there to filter the guests. Realizing again that Jasmine judges people by their wealth, I was fed up just hearing about it. I genuinely considered how to avoid her as much as possible in the future. But as long as our kids were at the same preschool, that seemed unlikely. I hoped we'd never meet again privately, but after the recent incident at the park, I realized that we live in the same area and that it would be difficult. I wished that this problem would disappear completely someday. I even wished on a star. On another day, I found myself heading towards a high-rise apartment. I opened the automatic lock at the entrance, walked inside the building, and looked around the floor. Just then, a door creaked open. Surprisingly, the person who appeared was the haughty guardian, Jasmine. I was taken aback and stood frozen for a moment, but soon I regained my composure. Well, hello there. No matter how much I disliked her, I figured I should at least say hello. However, Jasmine didn't respond, instead staring at me with wide eyes. We exchanged glances for a while until Jasmine furrowed her brows, a clear sign of her unhidden anger, and addressed me. I don't remember inviting you. Ah, she's referring to today's party. I don't recall being invited either, nor did I want to attend. Well, I wasn't invited, I responded matter-of-factly. Apparently, she didn't appreciate my response. Jasmine continued to confront me. Why are you here if you weren't invited? Why am I here, you ask? Did you come here to tour this high-rise apartment, even though you can only afford to dress your daughter in such drab and lowly clothing? She snickered at me with disdain. Hearing that, I thought, now is the perfect moment to counter Jasmine. I carefully chose my words to throw at her. Do you think I shouldn't be here? Yes, this is not a place for someone like you. Why is that? Because for someone poor like you, well, this is actually my home. As my words overlapped with Jasmine's, her movements came to a complete halt. Her face turned pale when she realized what I had said. She probably hadn't expected that response at all. Her eyes were black and white, as if she didn't understand. She blinked in disbelief, trying to digest the situation. Instantly, Jasmine's face turned red with anger. What do you mean? Explain yourself. Let me clarify for you then. Actually, my husband is the president of several companies. They may not be famous companies, but thanks to the income generated from these businesses, we earn significantly more than the average person. He owns several properties across Japan, and the new high-rise apartment building where we are now is built on one of his properties. So this apartment building is owned by my husband, which means it's our home. I regularly visit this high-rise apartment because my husband entrusted its management to me. He understood that I wanted to work, so he gave me this job. I explained the situation to her in a nutshell. Upon hearing this, Jasmine raised her eyebrows and shouted, What? I didn't know about this! When I signed the contract for the apartment, I didn't meet you. I met a man who was the manager. Oh, that must have been my husband. He took over for me this time for the key handover, so I didn't get a chance to meet you. You can tell as many lies as you want. With that parting shot, she went back into her home. To my surprise, Jasmine returned to the entrance. She seemed to have gathered an assortment of things from her home, children's toys, stuffed animals, stationery, clothes, all jumbled up in her arms. You're the one dressing your kid in such pitiful clothes. Stop lying. With that, Jasmine started throwing the items she was holding at me. There's no way you earn more than me. Jasmine's sudden outburst caught me by surprise, but her rage seemed to be running unchecked. Before I had a chance to react, the object she'd thrown whizzed past me. The sound of it hitting the floor echoed hollowly, a reminder of her uncontrolled anger. I decided then that it was high time to set the record straight about the park incident as well. About my daughter's clothes that day. What? Do you remember the day we were at the park? What does that have to do with anything? My daughter loves playing in the sand. I figured she'd get dirty anyway, so I dressed her in clothes that could handle a little grime. That's a lie. It's the truth. Here, look. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo from my album. Jasmine froze as she looked at the picture. In it, our family of 3 was all smiles, with my daughter wearing a recognizable children's brand outfit in the center. Jasmine's eyes widened even further in surprise as she took it in. You only dressed her nicely that one time, didn't you? She screeched, clinging to her last shred of denial. That's not true. Here, look at all these, I countered, showing her multiple photos. Sure enough, my daughter was seen wearing nice clothes in beautiful settings and more casual wear where it was likely she'd get dirty. At the sight of this, Jasmine clenched her fists and trembled, seemingly out of retorts. What? What? I replied, having not heard her clearly. This seemed to further upset Jasmine. What? Are you trying to say that being wealthy makes you superior? She yelled, pushing me hard on the shoulders. That was apparently the last straw. The other mothers who'd been keeping a watchful eye on the situation came outside and tried to calm Jasmine down. Jasmine kept shouting, She lied to me! There's no way she lives in this luxury apartment! She's just lying to be more popular than me! Ignoring the calming words of her friends, she continued to yell. After a while, perhaps exhausted from the constant shouting, Jasmine finally quieted down, catching her breath in heavy gasps. It was quite a sight. Her hair disheveled, one slipper missing, and all around her the aftermath of her tantrum. The hallway was littered with the objects she had thrown. Toys were broken from the impact, stuffed animals lay lifeless. She must have been grabbing anything she could get her hands on, meaning the inside of the house must be a mess too. From the inside of the house, I could see our children peeking out, worried. Are you satisfied now? I asked, flashing my best faux smile at Jasmine, who seemed unable to retort. Her face twisted amusingly at the sight. I hope you enjoy the luxury apartment brag party, I said, gliding past her, and please do clean up the mess that you made. From behind me, I heard her shout, Liar! It was just bravado, but it did give me a chuckle. As a result of this incident, Jasmine found herself distanced from the other close-knit mothers she knew. It seemed that her usually high-handed behavior had been a point of contention for some time. She even had the gall to make the other mothers clean up her mess. Her outrageous tantrum this time around was the last straw, painting her as an unstable individual in their eyes. The friends Jasmine thought she had amongst the mothers distanced themselves from her, and she found herself isolated in the preschool community. It was a pitiful sight to behold. To add insult to injury, rumors began to circulate that Jasmine had gotten a divorce. It was said that she was living lavishly off her husband's money, jet-setting on international trips and splurging on designer brands. This issue was the straw that broke the camel's back, as it was said that her spouse's affection and interest in her had already been waning. The incident where Jasmine threw objects at me and refused to clean up her mess was the final blow that pushed her husband over the edge. Jasmine reportedly pleaded, Please, don't leave me. But her husband responded, I never thought you would stoop this low. I can't stay with you anymore. I'm going to take custody of our child. And just like that, Jasmine was left all alone. Their marriage had been a secret affair where the two had eloped to a distant land. Hence, Jasmine had no one around her to lend a helping hand. Jobless Jasmine, having lost her means of living, was in a tough spot. Word of her fall from grace spread quickly through the grapevine, and finding employment was a struggle. Eventually, Jasmine managed to find work as a part-timer in a supermarket, and was said to be living in a run-down 50-year-old apartment with doors that creaked and groaned. It was reported that she was barely scraping by. After all that's happened, I sincerely hope Jasmine has learned her lesson and will no longer judge people based on their wealth.